Hey everybody, this is Perch, and Marvel has announced they're doing another X-Men team vote in 2022. So if you remember in 2021, they had a vote for one member of the X-Men. Polaris was the one who won it. And it had people like Ed Strong Guy and Forge and Cannonball and Sunspot and Morrow. And I remember the X Office was really rooting for Morrow because for some reason Morrow is the favorite character. That's got to mean something, right? I mean, Morrow. I think if your favorite character is Morrow, I don't know. That's kind of like, and it's not ironic. It's like people who like Slug best, or Maggot. Not Maggot. Slug is the Captain America villain. Maggot. If you love Maggot the most, I don't know. It's okay. There's something for everyone. Anyway, they are going to do the election again. The election last time was held at the conclusion or during the Hellfire Gala. The idea was that they opened up the election to either Twitter or Instagram or both. I don't now recall who won where, but they're doing it's DC. Remember, they did that round robin tournament that ended with Robins winning. And then we got a bunch of the other stories anyway. But are you excited about a vote? There hasn't been a lot of votes in the past. Now there've been some. Obviously, probably the most famous one is the should Jason Todd live or die, and people picked die, and then of course he did die, and then they brought him back to life anyway. But in general, they don't do a lot of these customer fan appreciation vote type things, and there's usually a reason for that. And the reason is if you're carefully constructing a long arc story, then these things can kind of interfere, get in the way. They wind up coming off as kind of hacky. But I suppose if you are not planning ahead, if you are writing stories in a kind of a, I don't know, month by month or 3 month by 3 month time frame, then maybe it makes sense. I struggle with it because I'm on principle I'm against the idea because I think it results in worse things. I don't think any of this leads to good stories. However, I like companies trying to connect more with their fans, with their customers. I think that's a good thing. So this is one of those. This is one of those ones I'm torn about because I think I'm in favor of this idea. I just wish they weren't doing it. Does that make any sense? Anyway, Marvel basically tweeted out hashtag X-Men vote 2022. And will there be more? Sure. I mean, I guess I have to believe that somewhere Jordan White and some of the other ex-office people are like, according to my Twitter feed, people are really into politics right now, and they're really into elections. We got the midterms. We got to get in on this. And forgetting that a lot of the discourse that you hear on social media around elections is just garbage. And so, saying, hey, this is a clear sign that our fans want us to inject this into the comics, I don't think so. But I mean, who knows? There's really nothing more than that. It's just that there will be another election. And in fairness, during some interviews when the Hellfire Gala was hadn't even started, I don't remember if it was Jerry Duggan or whether it was some other members. I think maybe it's Teeny Howard. Some or more. I don't know. They talked about two things. One, that they're going to do a Hellfire Gala every year, and two, that there would be an X-Men vote every year, and the X-Men team would be changed. There's this radical new idea. Hey, we'll let the people decide who's on the X-Men team, and that will lead to a better group and all the rest. But we now have had 5 months, 6 months, roughly, of X-Men comics that have come out, and it doesn't even feel like we've gotten through a first arc. I mean, I've been reading this comic. There's stuff in there. We had the Nightmare issue, and then we've introduced some new kind of alien threats and some other aspects to the X-Men, but the comic doesn't really feel like it's gelled or like it's even found its footing. So the idea that in 5 to 6 months we're going to have another vote and and change up the roster. I mean, I guess the X-Men did used to, and the Avengers both, for that matter, Justice League, most teams have changed their rosters on a yearly basis. It's just Um, the book doesn't have I don't, the book doesn't have any gravity to it. It doesn't have any really basis to it. I think this is part of the problem. Objectively, I could say for the X books right now, it's if here's an interesting thing to contemplate. The books that tended to be better received, I would say, by customers. Not by the way, wasn't necessarily reflected in the sales, so take this with a grain of salt. But the books that seem to have a more attached fan base were books like X Factor and books like Hellions. Very different groups, by the way, liked each book. The people who liked X Factor really liked X Factor, and the people who liked Hellions really liked Hellions. Those two groups are definitely different. But my observation is generally those two books had the most tightened up team dynamics. X Factor had a team; you knew who was on the team. They played up the aspect of team very clearly and constantly. Same thing with Hellions. The team was very established. You knew it. If you look at New Mutants, that has been a little bit of a rotating cast of kind of various. It's kind of at different times the younger mutants. Sometimes there's the core team. They kind of come in and out. It doesn't really. It feels like more of a book about the kids on Krakoa as opposed to a team book. X Force often seems like Domino and Wolverine and Kid Omega, and then Beast is kind of there, and Sage is doing some stuff. It doesn't have that same kind of Titan connection. In theory, Jean Grey's supposed to be on that team. She shows up every now and then. X-Men was a series of one-and-dones with Hickman, and now this new version by Duggan hasn't really found its footing. Um, who else do we get? What else teams do? I'm forgetting some. There's Excalibur. Excalibur is a Betsy Braddock book. It's the Captain Britain book. There are other people on that team. You do have Jubilee in there and Gambit and everything else. And probably the thing that people seem to like the best out of that book are those members of those teams. Sword always had kind of a rotating cast. They introduced people, but then they were doing different things with it. The Marauders, again, same kind of thing. Teams were all over the place. In many ways, I think Duggan, who is on Marauders, he's brought a lot of the same feel from Marauders to X-Men in his new book, where it just doesn't feel like there's a tightened up story. It's just a lot of kind of random stuff going on. By the way, if you like these books, you're listening to this right now, shaking your head, aggressively, going, no, you got it all wrong. That's fine. I'm just, I guess, in the state of the books, the ones that seem to have the tighter teams, that seem to have a tighter MO, like this is what the book's about. If you sign up to get this book, you're going to get this output, seem to have the more dedicated fans, the people who are more attached to the title. Just as an observation. So a long way of saying we're coming back to potentially another vote, and I'm assuming it's going to be the same, where they're going to put up one member of the team that you can vote on. I'm also assuming that we will get another Hellfire Gala, even though the Hellfire Gala didn't sell well. And by the way, complete cognitive disconnect here between the sales of the Hellfire Gala, which on the whole were soft. In most cases, and I'm speaking from the numbers given out by Marvel, the Hellfire Gala issues sold weaker than what was going on in the comic at the time. Just anyway, it didn't strengthen. The X Office seems to be completely the opposite view, that the Hellfire Gala did amazing numbers. They keep saying this. It did not. I don't know what they're looking at. Nobody knows, but there you go. But I think my guess is for 2022, we're going to get a couple of comics mentioning that there is a Hellfire Gala, but they won't show it. And then in one title, maybe two, there will be this Hellfire Gala and vote that goes on. But it's not going to be this whole line-wide thing that we saw before. That I think is that's not going to happen again. I may be wrong. The company is certainly crazy enough to go ahead and do a complete, a crossover with everything else. It's funny because I remember back in the 80s and 90s that in particular, I remember Chris Claremont complained, but Peter David was probably the most vocal of complaining about these crossovers that he would then have to insert into his comic and it would disrupt the story he was trying to tell. And it was It was annoying to him. He always hated them. And I always thought, but I like crossovers. I like some of the things that are going on, and generally some of the crossovers during that time, we had Fall of the Mutants, we had Inferno, which I didn't like as much, but still, that solid little book. And then we had the various extinction agendas and some of the other stuff that's going on. And I remember as a fan, as a customer, I liked them. I thought they were tight and good. And as a retailer later, I remember they sold well. The sales were bumped up. So I always, would hear Peter David's comments and go, I mean, okay, it disrupted your story, but it's good for the fans, it's good for the customers, it's good for the retailers. So, you know, um, sorry it's disruptive, but it seems to be better for everyone else. And I had this very kind of negative view about his perspective. Fast forward to today, and suddenly I find myself a lot more in alignment with him, because when they do these crossovers, when they do these the books, like, it just derails the title. There were a number of X books that were in, I don't know, reasonable shape heading into Hellfire Gala. I mean, I don't think they were doing great, but there was at least some momentum in a couple titles. And then they suddenly had to do this, all the mutants dress up, and it's going to cross over in every single book. And it just, I mean, in my opinion, it just screwed things up royally. It took a lot of the momentum and the energy away from those titles, from my perspective. But anyway, there you go. So we are getting another election. Good thing, bad thing. I go back to, I like the attempt at fan engagement. I just don't see any positive of this one. But I don't know. Maybe you're looking forward to it. So let me know in the comments below. You excited about another X-Men vote? You're all for it? Okay. Let me know. Thanks for listening.